Okay, well, I've answered some of this. In other words, more advanced types of nuclear reactors, breeder reactors, thorium reactors, and fusion reactors. I think that
Yeah.
space settlements are going to take robotics much further than people will initially want to do on Earth, because you're going to have a terrific labor shortage in space. I think they're going to take genetically modified crops much further, artificial food, other forms of genetically modified organisms that are capable of producing all kinds of materials. These will challenge existing industries.
So basically, that will be the energy part of technology, and then there will be the biotech part as well as the agriculture part. Where are we on these technology right now? I mean, there is quite a lot of, discussion. I mean, where do you see, for example, even for the agriculture, what is the latest development on that?
Well, once again, here's the thing. I mean, look, genetically modified crops are being held up on Earth by existing agricultural interests. Now, there isn't an existing agricultural interest on Mars. And they're going to be forced to grow their crops in greenhouses or other small facilities. They won't have wide open plains of farmland to grow. So they're going to have a very strong need to find the most efficient way to produce food. And they're not going to be held back by the fact that, the existing rice farmers of Japan or the European protectionists or whoever don't want to see something new come along. And so it's going to happen there.
So it's always like the case, right? That when the new world needs to break the old world, there is always a lot of resistance.
Exactly. Okay, you got to go someplace where entrenched interests are not in control. Okay, there's a bit of a breakout going on with artificial intelligence. It's causing a lot of excitement. I think it's going to scare people. I think we're going to start to see obstacles thrown up towards further advance of that kind of technology. Certainly people will view robots as a threat to jobs, for example. But on Mars, once again, you're going to have an incredible labor shortage. So they're going to want to advance these kinds of technologies. To me, labor-saving machinery,
absolutely,
whether it's a harvesting machine or a robot, these are all basically ways of multiplying the productivity of labor. Since the average product available per person to consume equals the average product that a person produces in a society. Now, it might not go to the same people, but even so, on average, the average product per person equals the average supply per person. And so the more productive the labor is, the higher standard of living is.
100%. And I think it's almost like, yes, there will be a lot of efficiency on a lot of the jobs, which means require less manpower. And then we might have, at one point we will have abundant labor, but that's, I think, also what happened, at 19th century when you have abundant labor in the East, and then you have a cross-continental railway, then, the abundant labor went to the West, developed the wide West, and that's where the California is, right? And I think at one point, if there is adoption of universal income, then people's basic living needs is actually covered. Then all these abundant knowledge and creativity, where they should go? I mean, it's definitely should explore the space. That's where we human as designated, right? Because we're so curious and we always want to explore new things and so on and so forth. And I think that is actually working in a way exactly why we need to explore space. And in that regard, how far do you think we are to that degree that we have the abundant labor, and now we are actually going to settle in other celestial body, and the ecosystem is mature?
I mean, I think that from a technological point of view, we're right on the edge right now of being able to begin the settlement of space. We clearly have the wealth. We have the surplus product, if you will. That is, this is a society that we're living in that is not so on the edge of subsistence that it has nothing to spare for starting new things. This is a society that has plenty of surplus capital. I mean, here's the thing. 100 years ago, there were maybe 10 people in the United States who had wealth that was comparable to that of, say, Elon Musk. Okay, well, actually, there aren't that many people. Put aside, they're comparable to that of a billion. So, Elon Musk is one of the 2 richest people in the world, or top 3, him, Bezos, and I don't know if there were any billionaires 100 years ago, because the money was worth more, but equivalent of a billionaire.
Totally 3,000 in the world.
There was Morgan, and there was Harriman, and there was Rockefeller, and a few others like that. You could just name those people. Now there are thousands of billionaires in the United States alone. Okay, 3,000. Okay, and then there are other financial institutions that are controlled by groups of people that are effectively billionaires. Now, here's Musk. He's starting an electric car company and a space company and some other companies. Okay, and these companies were not really started for the purpose of trying to make money. These were started by him as what you might call fun projects. They weren't motivated by how am I going to invest my money to make the most money.
Correct.
Okay, SpaceX was not a good bet for that. Even Tesla was not a good bet for that. They were started because this was something he thought it would be cool to do, and important, okay, if you will, but something that turned him on. All right. Now, there's all sorts of other projects being done by people who are doing things not to make money. There are people building ski slopes indoor in Dubai, or there's just all this stuff going on. Okay, and that proves that we've just got money all over the place on this planet right now, which is looking for something cool to do. Okay, in other words, if you're investing money in order to make money, even if you're already rich, you are, in a sense, following necessity, because maybe you've got stockholders and they're very concerned that their dividends be maximized, and they've got bills to pay. So, but if you're doing some things like these, it shows that this is truly free energy. It's energy, financial energy, that is there to explore all sorts of new possibilities. Okay? And this planet is bursting with it right now. So we're ready to go.
So the wealth is there. I think the technology is ready. I think it's more of the awareness, so people actually know that the technology is there and that we could be ready to take off.
We're ready to go. The wealth is there. The technology is there. Well, we're ready to take off.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen. Now, to you and I who are living here in this time, it matters a great deal whether it happens this year or 20 years from now. But to people looking back at this time from 200 years from now, they're hardly going to know the difference between the year 2023 and the year 2043. It's all going to look the same to them. In this period of history, it's going to happen. Okay, I hope it happens closer to 2023 than 2043 or 2063. But this is the project that is certainly going to happen in the first half of this century. And I think a lot of it's going to happen this decade.
I think so too. And definitely you have made a massive contribution to make that to where it is now already. So thank you for that. Okay, that leads to my next question. And because you have been always such a strong advocate for space and for Mars, I recall that you didn't get much private funds for the project in late 90s, the Mars project. How do you feel like the VC and P ecosystem changed since 1998 in favor of new space?
What happened in the 90s was, of course, the internet. The people who made money on the internet were a new generation. They were people in their 20s. Okay, Elon Musk was in his 20s in the 1990s when he did PayPal. Okay, and people like Jeff Bezos, similar age. In other words, it was the people who made money on the internet was not IBM or Exxon or so forth. And there were even major corporations which indirectly were bankrupted by the internet, like Kodak, for example, who the film camera was left behind by the digital camera and so forth. Okay. Now, what happened was, okay, so that older generation of rich people, they understood that once you had more money than you needed, you would do things like give it to the opera, or maybe you'd have a football stadium built named after yourself or something like that. But now you had a whole bunch of billionaires who grew up watching Star Trek, whose vision of what was important in the world, at least some of them, okay, was achieving human expansion into space. People that were there that were willing to throw money around on rocket companies. Now, it took a little while. There were a number of false starts in the 90s. There was also a false start in telecom, where people in the 90s were talking about creating massive satellite constellations to create cell phones that could go everywhere. All this didn't happen then, but it's happening now. Okay, there were several private space companies started in the late 90s by internet billionaires or telecom billionaires, but they didn't have the toughness. They didn't have the fortitude to keep going when it turned out to be harder than they had been told it was going to be. Okay, and Musk, when he went into this in the early 2000 period, he thought it was going to be a lot easier for him than it turned out to be, but he was able to deal with it. He was able, his first 3 launches on the Falcon 1s all failed. Okay. And it took longer. He thought he could start the company in 3 years, he'd be in orbit. And in fact, it took more like 7. And he had 3 failures before it succeeded and so forth. And with even a small rocket. And it could even turn out, that Musk is not the guy. That is Musk. He had certain strengths that some of the zillionaires, space revolutionaries before him did not have. So he's gotten a lot further. But he also has, we all have character weaknesses, and they could trip him up. But there's more and more people getting into this. Sooner it's going to happen.
Absolutely. So I actually felt like the reason why space getting so much momentum is mainly because of launch costs, right? I think the reusable rocket is almost like the turning point. Before, like nowadays, when you have like deep space and the planetary resources, I feel like they were just so ahead of the curve that people just couldn't really understand it, or that it was not, they don't have enough.
No, that's absolutely correct. The key first step was to create cheap access to space. From that, other things can follow. From that, various business plans that couldn't make sense before start to make sense.
I guess right now, not just the billionaires, right? We also see VC fund, and a lot of VC fund that actually before was focused on deep tech, now also have the segment of space and space technology. And I guess that just we never seen during the 90s, right? I mean, there might be a few billionaires, or like what you mentioned, the internet billionaire or the telecom billionaire, that they have personal invest something, but you don't really see the financial ecosystem around it. Would you agree on that, or you see different?
Well, the financial system is starting to assemble, and so it's unusual types of people like Musk or Bezos who were willing to do this without a clear road to profit. But once they got this thing started, now you do have conventional investors, VCs, and so forth, people who are investing to make money. And, because that's how Rocket Lab is funded. It was not created by a billionaire who was bored. It was created by real investors who are working on solid business metrics. And
Absolutely.
once it becomes clear, that money is to be made by doing something, it will happen. It will happen. No one can stop it from happening. Okay, you could pass laws against it; it'll still happen. Okay, once people know that they can make money doing something, it will happen.
Yeah.
So it takes a leap of imagination to do something before it's clear or even probable that you can make money doing it. People do
Agree.
some things like that for other motives, but
Yeah.
but there's always people to be found who are willing to embrace the motive of making money. Such people are not rare.
Particular. And that's also make the entire thing just so much more sustainable, right?
And I might say, if there's a prospect of making money, it doesn't have to be certain. There are people who are willing to take quite a bit of risk to make money. Okay.
Agree. Agree.
Yeah.
So what do you see the biggest opportunities and the challenges facing in space economy today? And in particular, recent news of Virgin Galactic might go into administration. How do you think that will affect the current momentum of the space investment?
I don't think that will affect it very much. Most people in the know understood that the Virgin Galactic business plan was problematical. 4-minute joyrides to suborbital flight is not a serious business plan. It just isn't. Orbital communications, constellations, that's a serious business plan. Okay. Orbital research labs is a serious business plan. Long-distance surface-to-surface transportation instantly or within an hour all around the world is a potentially very serious business plan. The cheap access to orbit in general is a very serious business plan.
Yeah. Well,
so
I think
we're going to see a lot of businesses in Earth orbital space of some of the types I just mentioned.
Yeah.
The next challenge is going to be to take it to the next step, which will be interplanetary settlement. Because once again, the initial profit motive behind that is not clear. Once we're there, it'll be very clear. Okay, it's like Christopher Columbus. Okay, he says, Queen Isabella, I want 3 ships. I'm going to sail them off into the ocean. And they say, what, that way? No ships. There's nothing over there. We've never, no ship has ever come here from there. What are you going to do? These are ships, We could make money with these ships in the Mediterranean. You're just going to sail them off to nowhere? Just sail off the edge of the world? What is that all about? And then
he was able to.
Even when he did discover the New World, it wasn't for another generation that the Spaniards discovered that there was something there to make money off of.
Got you. So the biggest opportunity and the biggest challenge right now for space economy is planetary settlement.
Well, okay, the immediate opportunity is Earth orbit. Okay, the people who are going to make money in space in this decade and the next decade are going to be doing these Earth orbit constellations and orbital research labs and space hotels and surface-to-surface transportation, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a situation, 10 years from now, okay, where you won't have to be a terribly unusual person to be looking at the business opportunities in space. Okay, that will be very clear, and it'll be just like people today. They're looking for business opportunities in computers or commodities or blah blah blah. That'll be an ordinary field of business, okay? And the visionaries will be the ones who say, I think we can take this further. I think we can take this to other worlds. Okay. And and it'll probably take some unusual people to be the ones who make that. Well, if I'm still around, yeah. Or if Musk is still around.
Younger generation even,
Or someone.
Absolutely. That's also why I actually think space tourism is quite important, because it's actually bring a lot more awareness and a lot more curiosity and a lot more accessibility to the normal people. I think it's just probably the way it is run. Yeah, I agree
right,
with
but
you.
it's going to have
I
to
agree.
be real
and also
tourism.
the failed launch doesn't help them.
4-minute flights.
Yeah. Perfect. And that's...
Yeah.
Yes, I think we are definitely wrapping up, and there's just one more question that I think I would really like to ask, that what kind of advice that you will be able to give to young people who will be interested in pursue the career in the space, and I think that will be very interesting to the listener.
Okay, well, there's a number of different kinds of things you could do. Okay, first of all, there is the traditional route, which is engineering. Okay, if the most obvious way for someone to get involved with the space business is to get an engineering degree, and it can be aerospace engineering, although there's actually more mechanical and electrical engineers working in the space business than aerospace engineers, but there's also a lot more of them. But sure, and you could go to work.
Yeah.
For one of the space startups or one of the more established space companies, or even for the government agencies. Okay, but then there's a second kind of group of people.
Okay.
People more perhaps like you, which are people with a business orientation, okay, which is to figure out how you can start up a new space enterprise, and perhaps pull in a few of your friends who are these young engineers to help develop the concept and do it. So the business people are essential in this of creating the new companies. So people with a business background or orientation could have a major role here in this way. Okay, and then finally there are people who are neither technical people nor business people, who you might call them artists. And by artist, I don't just mean people who paint paintings, although that's included. I mean all the arts, film, novels, storytellers, okay? Because it's the vision which is recruiting both the engineers and the business people to want to do this, okay? So, it's these people. And then
lawyer.
Also, I mean, there's people in the political world who can make a contribution to this as well. Because we got to have, lawyers and politicians and so forth. We got to have friends in the right places at the right time and in the governments, because otherwise this thing could get held up. I mean, look, nuclear power, for a while, it was a great success. In the early 70s, we were getting orders for 2 new nuclear power plants every month in the United States. And then the wrong people got in power, and they created a very hostile regulatory structure. And until that is fixed, nuclear power is well, we have it, but it's not revolutionizing the world. It's just sort of there.
Exactly.
So for if we get a hostile regulatory structure, this whole space revolution could be put on hold for decades.
Doesn't matter which talent that person have. If they have interest in space,
so there's a lot
they
of ways
can go
that people
through
can
entrepreneurship, technology, like what you said, artist, lawyer, politician. It's all what space economy need. I mean, I didn't even realize the time passed by so fast. Just so enjoy with all the insight you are sharing.
Right.
Particularly, I mean, I love the fact that you always like to quote the historical event for us to take a reference about the future. So one last key message, just one sentence, what you would like our audience or listener to take away from these 2 parts of interview?
We're living at a remarkable time. I think future generations, especially far future generations, will view this as basically the beginning of history. So here we are, we're present at the creation. And it's an enormous opportunity that we have. And so I hope people
absolutely join the
take advantage of it.
Join the journey. Be the part of space and space economy. Thank you so much, Dr. Zubrin, and I'm sure it's easier for people to find you because you are such a well-known personality in the space industry. And I think we definitely should schedule another session for your new book. I just feel there's absolutely,
perhaps in a month
the new
so.
book, that's where everybody should pay attention and maybe get one of the copies. Please show us the book.
It's called The Case for Nukes, and it's available on Amazon,
The Case
both in
for
paperback
Nukes.
and Kindle.
Thank you so much, and also,
Thank you.
And I'm also thank you for Decentral for arranging studio and our production team. So thank you so much. Thank you. Talk to you soon. Ciao, ciao.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. Thank you.